consider Dawn of the Planet of the Apes to be one of the greatest sequels ever made. I know that sounds like hyperbole, but trust me when I say Dawn of the Planet of the Apes absolutely rules. And it's only gotten better considering the fact that it's celebrating its 10-year anniversary, and yet people still look back on it and go, wow, like what a picture, in the words of Al Pacino from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But before I dive into my thoughts, well, my extended thoughts, I have a co-host for this one. It is one third of the small talk. No, it's not Jacob Collins. It's Matt Wyatt. Matt, how you doing?
Dude, I'm glad to be here and getting into the nitty-gritty of Dawn of the Apes. And crazy that it's almost the 10th anniversary because this movie came out like in July of 2014.
Yeah, 2014 low key was an epic year for movies. I think I've talked
Oh,
about
I
it in other
completely agree,
places.
dude.
You got Captain America the Winter Soldier, you got frickin' Nightcrawler, you got uh
Yeah, I can
the
literally list off the top of my head like you got Whiplash, Birdman, like you said, Nightcrawler, The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1,
yeah,
Days of Future Past. Holy
yep.
shit, dude. I mean, it was a crazy year for a bunch of big hitters for cinema.
Yeah, that was like a crazy year. Like when people say you just had to be there, I think Matt and I can both safely say you just had to be there. I was there and it was
Yeah,
beautiful.
and I was in the early stage where I got into more movies of any genre, and then I went to the movies more and more. I was open to watch anything that could actually potentially be an Oscar tenor because back in the day, like prior to that, I was very picky when it comes to movies when I go to the cinema.
We all have periods like that in our film lover's life, for lack of a better word. But let's get into Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And the basic premise is that it takes place several years after Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and the human civilization has fallen thanks to the simian flu, which was teased at the end of Rise of the Planet of the Apes in one of the creepier post-credit scenes that I've ever seen, especially living in 2024 in a post-COVID world. But San Francisco is in ruins, and the last of the human survivors, led by a tyrannical Gary Oldman, are living in the ruins of the city, while Caesar and Koba are leading the apes in the jungles outside of it. However, the humans need to get to a dam in order to get some power, and so a tenuous alliance is struck, but the question is, how long does the alliance last? Spoiler alert, not too long. But Matt, before we dive deep into Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, what did you think of Rise of the Planet of the Apes? Because it's one of those movies where Rise is so good, but then you got Dawn. They're in the same trilogy,
Yeah.
but they feel in a lot of ways so different. So what did you think of Rise?
Oh no, I definitely love Rise. I mean, before this movie came out for the Rise of the Planet of the Apes, I was not so sure how I was going to feel about it until I saw it in the theater because they're trying to do a reboot prequel story that it's going to be a clean slate, and I ended up being the big surprise. A lot of people were very skeptical before the Rise of the Planet of the Apes came out. And yeah, it's made by a different director, Rupert Wyatt, which we both share the same last name. Well, how convenient. And even Matt Reeves, who's now the director for this movie, we share the first name. That's kind of weird, the way the first and last name shuffled from different directors from my name anyway. But yeah, it was a great start from Caesar's story arc, and then showing you how this whole like epidemic started in the first place. But yeah, coming into for Dawn of the Apes, I didn't know who Matt Reeves was at the time, but from what I've heard that he directed like Cloverfield, and we were getting into the first teaser trailer, and it looks like we're getting into a little bit of a different tone from what we had in the first movie. It kind of feels like more of like a standalone story where it is a continuation, but it doesn't have to require yourself to do a homework assignment to watch the Rise before going into this. You can really watch this without getting lost because the way they did the opening of what happened in the aftermath of this whole simian flu and how the human race has fallen into ruins and the apes are hiding out in the mountains, like, yeah, they did a great job with the cold opening of the movie.
The teaser trailer is probably one of my favorite teaser trailers of all time, where it's just a super close in on Caesar's face and like his
Oh,
eyes. And
yeah.
then as you slowly pan out, there's the voiceover narration going on. Caesar's got his arm raised up. He's waiting, waiting, waiting. Then he drops his hand, the apes jump up, and then it's Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I'm just like, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. It's
Oh
just one
yeah.
of the greatest teaser.
Even after the prologue of the opening, you just see Caesar get like zooming away from his eyes and his face as he's in the wilderness going on a hunt. You hear the thunder and the raindrops, and it's no music playing. Like imagine going back and watching this in the theater with an audience and just getting that immersive experience. You're just instantly transported. It set the tone of the movie. At first, when you watch the marketing, it kind of sets up that there's gonna be a war going on. But in this context, it was just more of Caesar going on a hunt.
And you did touch on the fact that this was directed by Matt Reeves, who previously had directed Cloverfield, was a big collaborator with J.J. Abrams in Bad Robot, and then afterwards he would go on to direct The Batman. We all know what that movie is, and would see the trilogy through with War for the Planet of the Apes, which is why everyone was so excited when it was announced he was directing the next Batman movie because Dawn and War were so good. But I'll touch on War on Monday. But talking about Dawn. Like in my review for Rise, I could not stop talking about how good Andy Serkis is. We could just say like Andy Serkis is amazing in this movie ad nauseum, but he just is. And shout out to Toby Kebbell as well for playing Koba. Like Caesar and Koba, honestly, are two of the best parts of this whole movie. Their dynamic is so good because Caesar wants the alliance between him and the humans to work. But Koba is like, yeah, those humans, you can't trust them. And it's not like a long, winded out dialogue scene. It's a scene where Koba just is like, human work,
Human
human
work.
work. I, it's great, especially considering in Rise, Koba was experimented on at Genesis by James Franco's character and those scientists. So if this movie rewards you for paying attention, but also if you didn't so happen to see Rise, you didn't necessarily have to understand the context. By him just doing that, you'd be like, yeah, you can definitely tell that he and humans are like oil and water, they don't mix.
Because he was never raised with the humans and never saw the good side of them. He was always taught to hate, and he was experimented on, cut it open, using him as a lab rat, and that's what led him into his own madness and his own misguided ways. And he feel like that the humans needs to be eliminated, and we can never live in harmony with them. They always hate us. They think we're nothing but a violent animal race. But Caesar, he grew up with loving and caring. He was nurtured by James Franco. He took him in out of love, but also he wanted to study him. But then he grew attachment. And even when 10 years have passed, he there's a scene in the movie with him and Maurice, and this is like after their hunt, like you get this little quiet moment, and Maurice is asking like, "Do you miss the humans?" And he was like, sometimes, but deep down we know that he lost a father figure, adopted father off screen, and he's trying to find a reason to like still have faith in humanity that there's someone out there who is like his adoptive father, and he definitely truly does care about them, and he wants to have a reason to fight for something.
Caesar is not hard-hearted, but he also understands humanity's capacity for evil. So there's nuance in this movie all over the place, and that's one of the beauties of it. It's not just humans are bad, apes are good, you need to cheer for the apes or else. Like even there are good humans like Jason Clarke's character, and then there are humans that are not necessarily the best people, like Gary Oldman's character. So no matter how you slice it, you're looking at somebody and you go, yeah, you've been through a lot, but your actions are not necessarily super great at the same time. So it's a balancing act, and just the movie does such a great job of pulling it off.
But I think that the major problem with the human character was Carver, the one who just shoots first and asks questions later and brought a lot of shitstorm.
Yep.
Which I remember that actor from The Walking Dead, and he was coming off from that show, and he's been in a lot of like good roles prior to this.
Caesar and Jason Clarke's character, they're going towards the dam, and one of them brings a shotgun, and then she's like, "You said no guns." I'm like, "Yep, Jason, you screwed up." You
Yeah,
really screwed up
one
big.
of your own people really screwed up big time. You didn't bother to double check to see if one of them is keeping a weapon for themselves because they made it clear like you can stay and work on the dam, but we're gonna have to get rid of guns because we need to know that you're not going to become part of the problem in trying to kill one of our own people. We're trusting you. And you kind of destroy that trust when one of your men kept a shotgun with them.
Absolutely. And like I said, the movie rewards you for paying attention because Caesar's like inner circle, for lack of a better word, is Copa, like we talked about, but also Maurice, who was like the first friend that he ever made inside of the ape prison, I guess,
Yeah, it
from
was more of like the
Rise.
zoo. It was like the zoo
Yeah,
for apes.
let's call it a zoo, yeah. But
Yeah.
Maurice and Caesar, like Caesar told him apes together strong. Like that connection was there from day one. And so it's a really nice hey, I remember that. It's like it's a subtle thing and it's there, but if you pick up on it, great. And if you don't, then you don't necessarily have to have seen anything to be like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like the movie does a great job of showing that Maurice is the number two, but the Caesar. Caesar is number one.
With Carver, like he's just so like impulsive and like unpredictable. He completely blames everything on the apes and everything that happened and when everything in the world went to crap. And was like, no, it wasn't really their fault. It was literally the scientists, the humans were responsible for this virus like spreading across the globe. Like, but I believe that they made up a BS cover story to cover their tracks and blame it all on the apes.
I feel like there needed to be like a human equivalent to Koba in this movie. I think that's why Carver exists. But he's not necessarily like a poorly acted character. I think he actually does a great job. Shout out to Kirk Acevedo. I'm pretty sure I butchered his name, but that's about as good as I'm gonna do.
I couldn't have done any better.
But but also you got Terry Notary as Rocket, one of the other apes, and you got Judy Greer in the movie as one of as is in
Yeah,
here as
she's
well.
playing Cornelia. That's supposed to be Caesar's wife in the movie.
Which is interesting because in the original series, one of the main lead apes is named Cornelius and is played by Roddy McDowall. So it's a subtle like gender swapping of sorts, and no one really seemed to notice that.
Hmm. Well, I haven't seen them, so I can't even speak for myself.
Well, I
But
it's interesting for me because I've seen all of them now, and I can say be like Cornelia, Cornelius. So that's very interesting.
yeah, for the humans, they're so desperate to have an alternative power source because they ran out of nuclear power and the dam is their only solution. So they can contact the outside world and try to see if there's any survivors out there. And Gary Oldman is the one who's leading all this, and he's desperate to just to get that dam working. And the apes are becoming part of the problem.
You know, Gary Oldman is one of those actors who could so easily go over the top and be like, everyone, like his role
Everyone, or
from
like
like,
from Fifth, or from the guy from the Fifth Element.
oh yeah, yeah. I can't think of his name now, and I love that movie to pieces, but I'll put up a picture. I'm sure you all know the one I'm talking about. But Gary Oldman's character is really good. And one of my favorite scenes of the movie is when the power's back on, he fires up his iPad and he's looking back at these old photos of his army buddies and then his family. And he's like, yeah, again, the dude's done some questionable things, but at the end of the day, he's a human being. Like he's got feelings. He genuinely
I
misses
mean,
his loved
he's not a guy who is a twirly mustache kind of antagonist that you've seen before. Like he's just has been in the rough spot. He lost everyone he cared about it. And yeah, from that moment, I completely agree. That was one of my favorite touching moments that they can completely that you can absolutely sympathize with Gary Oldman's character that he lost people that he cared about, his army buddies and his family, and how much he was dying, crying in tears, and knowing that he gets to see their faces again after the power went back on because they don't have these like old school Polaroid photos for physical. He just took all those photos on his iPad. And
I mean, Polaroids, would assume would exist. In what year does this take place? Like the 2100s, let's just say. But
yeah, I think this is because this is supposed to be like the first movie is supposed to be like 2011 or something, and this is supposed to be like 10 years later.
so 2021, technically. And well, well, the apes didn't rise up, so I guess we're
Well, I guess
safe.
the pandemic was kind of like ahead of its time, don't you think?
It, yeah, watching
If you
the end of
really think
Rise,
about it.
watching the end of Rise, where like the doctor gets sick and then he like coughs up the blood. I was just sitting there like,
From one of James Franco's neighbor who was a pilot and then went to the airport and then he starts coughing during the
yeah,
mid-credit scene and then now it's starting to spread.
yeah, like keep 6 feet away from me, my dude. But it
Keep
just
social dis That's why social distancing exists.
exactly.
Keep the mask on.
But but the third act or the third act of the movie is Koba attempts a coup d'etat, and Koba and Caesar have a great battle at the very end, and Koba ends up biting the dust. I love the ending of this, and then it leaves open the possibility of a third one, which we ended up getting with War for the Planet of the Apes, and it warns of a human military, which we later learn is led by Woody Harrelson. I love the honestly like the action throughout the whole movie is really spot on, but I love the scene. There's this one little moment in this action scene where it's on a tank. Matt, you know the
Oh,
scene I'm talking
I
about.
know exactly what you're talking about. The single 360 shot of
Yeah,
top of the tank, and it kept spinning and when the battle sequences and the chaos is still going on. And it felt like you're watching a video game.
like wow, this is some crazy filmmaking because in the hands of a lesser director, there'd be like 1,000 cuts from everywhere, but
Oh yeah,
Matt
there
Reeves
would
is
be
just
like different cuts, one scene into the next, one shot to the next.
Matt Reeves is like, we are holding steady. We are holding steady right here. And just, it's like, it's a beautiful set piece. And then, like I
Yeah, you
said,
can do that. You can do that by being very creative with your single shot from single sh take.
absolutely. It's kind of like the approach that Sam Mendes took with 1917, for lack of a better word. And there are cuts in the movie. They're just incredibly subtle. It's one of those like blink and you'll miss it, but if you see it, you're like, oh, there's one. But it's clever, so it's very well hidden.
Oh yeah. One of my favorite moments in the movie when Caesar goes back to the house that he was actually in and he goes up into the attic and the symbol that he drew like back in his old home before it got burned down, that's just the window design of that thing from his own place and he uses it as a symbolism as a revolution. And I loved how he continues to still have that even after the film. And even when he sees gets the camera and takes a recording footage of seeing his adopted father, James Franco, teaching him how to do sign language. Like he just gets so teary-eyed and emotional that he really misses him and just remind him of who he was before.
Like Caesar is home. And it's like it's just a great tie-in with the ending of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, where Caesar says Caesar is home. And then,
Caesar
uh,
is home.
yeah, that scene. And then it's a great tie-in at the end of Dawn, where it's like the closing of one chapter and moving on to what would end up being the final one. And I mean, this is a slam dunk amazing grade for me. I love this movie to pieces. Honestly, as I said in my review for Rise, this is like a fantastic trilogy that I feel like gets praised but doesn't get praised enough. Matt, I hope I'm not too out of bounds with this comparison. I compare this trilogy a lot to the Dark Knight trilogy, in that Batman
Mm,
Begins is a great movie. Then The Dark
absolutely.
Knight, we all know what that one is. And then The Dark Knight Rises, which has its foibles, but is still a movie that I defend to this day. But the
Uh-huh.
point I'm trying to get at is Rise of the Planet of the Apes is a great first movie, but Dawn was so much better that people tend to forget about Rise. And then War for the Planet of the Apes is seen, I think, by some as the weakest of the three, but is still fantastic.
Hmm.
So it's like a trilogy that is all hits, no misses, kind of like the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. You're not far off from the comparison with the Dark Knight trilogy and the Planet of the Apes reboot prequel trilogy. I think, yeah, because Rise was a great start And but once you get into Dawn of the Apes, you don't really think about the previous movies, especially for newcomers who have never seen it, can still love it and not get lost in the in the story. And yeah, I completely agree that this is definitely the best out of the three movies. And I can't believe that this didn't get a lot of Oscar recognition, but this should have been nominated for Best Picture. And this is like the best performance for Andy Serkis's part because he is now carrying this franchise alone. Because in the first movie, he sort of did, but it was more of a James Franco centric, and he was mostly carrying that film than Andy Serkis. This one, he truly had a true arc, and he was a leading character, and he gave it all in that performance, and especially in a mocap suit. And I give them props for the production value with the shooting in practical locations without having to like overuse of green screens that the majority of the time. And he should, and I think he should have gotten an Oscar nomination for Best Actor for Andy Serkis. I mean, I don't care if his character is CGI, but he was actually performing in the mocap suit, seeing the facial expression and everything. It was just like he gave it all.
I couldn't agree with you more. And really, like it's still weird to me to see Andy Serkis as like in his like normal like face, like seeing him in like out in the open because he's so well known for being a motion capture actor like Gollum, Caesar, Snoke, and
Mhm.
he's so good at it that like when I see him in something like 13 going on 30 with the jet black dyed hair
Dude,
or
every time I go back and watch 13 going on 30, I always keep forgetting that's freaking Andy Serkis. Like, what? That's him? Every
like
time I watch
legit
it, I always keep forgetting that he was in the movie.
like legit when I saw Avengers Age of Ultron for the first time, I saw with my dad and my dad's like, that's Gollum. I'm like, what are you talking about? And like, that's Andy Serkis. And I'm like, what? And like
Wait, wait,
it
wait,
blew
hold on.
my mind.
You didn't know that he played Gollum at the
I
time?
knew he played Gollum, but I didn't know what he looked like. I had never seen a
Oh.
photo of him. Like so when he popped up and it's like, that's Andy Serkis? He's an actual guy? Like I was dumb enough to I had no idea what he looked like. And so when I saw him as like palling around with like James Spader and Ultron, like keep your friends rich and your enemies rich, and then you'll know what which is what. And like
Cut the
seeing
yeah, the
him,
cut the fish, cut the fish. Oh, oh.
it legit was like, wow, Andy Serkis is a guy. And like later I found out he's actually directed a movie with Andrew Garfield in it called Breathe, which I haven't seen, but I do want to see now. He's directed a Tarzan movie for Netflix, and
Wait,
he's
what was it a
done.
Tarzan? I thought it was Mowgli that he directed.
Yeah, you're right. You're
Yeah, it
right.
had
You're
to be
absolutely.
yeah, there was Mowgli that not a lot of people talk about. I tried watching it. It wasn't it kind of wasn't all that good. I tried watching it and I fell off of that movie.
But the period,
But I will say that with some people don't take the mocap actor performances very seriously when it comes to the academy. But to me, acting is acting. Whether you're performing
yeah,
in the mocap motion capture suit or you're performing in physical live action form, you're still acting your ass off, and it's still all you doing all the physicality.
couldn't agree with you more. And I guess the period at the end of the sentence of what I was trying to get at is that Andy Serkis is so good in as a motion capture actor that I can't I for years I could never see him like outside of that. And so like he just is so good at what he does. But I mean that's fairly obvious at this point. But like Matt, like 1 to 5, you'd give Dawn like 5, right?
Oh, absolutely 5 out of 5. It's a masterpiece, and I hope like we can all agree that this is the best one that they've done. And Matt Reeves' direction was absolutely terrific. How he was managed to balance out the C2 sides of the different coin with the human characters and the apes and how they needed to coexist and how they can live in harmony, but doesn't always turn out the way you've hoped. There are a lot of great acting performances. It just tied on your heartstrings. Andy Serkis really, like I said, he gave it all he got from that performance, and the music score was absolutely terrific. The way that they end the movie, that now that the war has actually have started, and now Caesar has no choice but to now fight them because the humans do not forgive, and he has to have Malcolm to take his wife and his kid to safety because there's going to be a battle going on, and I can't have you in the middle of it. And that one scene the one line that he says, "I thought we had a chance," and he's like, "I did too." Oh my God, like that just got me so emotional. And the way that he's facing with the apes on the horizon, and you see him zooming into the camera work through Caesar's face and through his eyes, like, yep, the war is about to start, and I'm gonna have to leave them. That was a great parallel shot from the opposite of what happened in the beginning of the movie when they were zooming out and now they're zooming in at the end.
To put it quite simply, if you have not seen Dawn of the Planet of the Apes or haven't seen it for a while, this is your homework assignment. Watch Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, especially the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is within a couple of weekends now. So, or well, this up and coming weekend, it comes out May 11th. So not this weekend, but next weekend.
Yep,
So
it's
that's your
really
homework.
close,
At
and
least
I booked my ticket to go see the early access screening on the 8th of Wednesday, which I'm really excited.
so, if nothing else, watch Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. That is the homework assignment. But I passed off to all of you. If you have, in fact, seen Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, what did you think? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to read what you have to say. Matt, thank you for joining me for this. It was a great time. You are one third of the Small Talk podcast here on this channel alongside Jacob Collins. Your link tree will be in the description. Do you have any videos coming up?
Yeah, I just dropped my new review of the Fall Guy, so be sure to check that out. It's on my channel right now, and you can follow my social media platforms. The link tree will be, like he said, the link tree will be down in the description below. And yeah, this was a blast talking about Dawn of the Apes. If, like he said, definitely watch it. I mean, even in the movie came out 10 years ago, the movie still holds up. Story, characters, and the visual effects and the set pieces are flawless.
Absolutely. Matt's channel will be linked in the description, his link tree, I should say, excuse me. But as far as this channel goes, the end is near for the road to the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes because on Monday we will officially be closing things out with my review for War for the Planet of the Apes. But that will be on Monday. But for now, for Matt Wyatt, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. Y'all take care.